Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nen Show Podcast. This is your host, Craftsdwarf, here with my co-host, Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
Saint Seiya!
Yeah, we're reading a new thing. No responding to comments as normal for the start of a new series, but as usual, if you leave a comment, we might talk about it next time. But, personal history with Saint Seiya. What's your personal history with Saint Seiya, Mathwiz?
It came up when we were talking about, for the Bleach podcast as an inspiration for Bleach. And, that is the most I have heard about Saint Seiya.
Okay. No, yeah, because I also heard that. And in general, I just feel like I've known of it for a long time because when I was in high school, I had a friend who really liked the manga. And I never read it myself. But then, especially now, just knowing more about, how Shounen, and Jump evolved in particular, Kuramada, the author of Saint Seiya, is kind of a big deal. We talked about Ring Kakuro, and have talked about for a while because, it was inspired by Ashita no Joe, and it was a major influence into the reason, why Kinnikuman and Dragon Ball shifted into a more of an action focus. Then he did another Fuma no Culture or something like that, and then that got canceled, and then he ended it because his dad died, I think I heard. And then he did Saint Seiya after a few other attempts at manga got canceled. So he's kind of a big deal as far this is interesting because this is the first old school manga that we've read where it's also by an established author, right? Or no, I guess that's Toriyama did have success with Dr. Slump, so that's not quite the case. So never. But yeah, this is still. But Ring Kakuro was a big fucking deal. And so here he is, following that up with Saint Seiya, which became a bigger deal, arguably. Because another reason I know about it is that I just know that it's, really popular in Latin America.
Yeah.
And to the point where it's, like someone on my server, Hombre, who lives in Chile, he showed some pictures of, an anime store there, and there was just a shitload of Saint Seiya figures, and which he just posted to make a point of just, how, as an example of how popular it was. Apparently the Guinness World Record for the person who owns the most Saint Seiya merchandise or collection, the biggest collection basically. Someone in Peru has a collection of over 6,000 pieces of Saint Seiya merchandise.
Goodness.
Yeah. So it's it's kind of a big fucking deal. It's only surpassed by Dragon Ball, which, considering in English speaking community, it doesn't get talked about very much at all. I feel even though I know people who like it, but it's just kind of ignored. It got an official release, it got an English dub, and somehow I just feel like it just hasn't really stuck in the English community in the ways a lot of stuff that was coming out around the same time did. But then in Latin America it's fucking massive, so it's kind of neat to think about. But I don't have any personal history with myself aside from just recognizing it and Kuramada from a distance. I would love to read Ring Kakuro, but it's not fully translated in English, so it's oh well. So we're kind of skipping as far because part of the reason for going through the old school stuff is to see chains of influences and these important older works that kind of get skimmed over sometimes. So it's we got Ashita no Joe. We got Saint Seiya, but we missed out on Ring Kakuro, which kind of bridges that gap. But because you even mentioned the Ashita no Joe similarity, and I didn't even think about it for some reason. And once you mentioned it, I was oh yeah, that's kind of a thing when it comes to Kuramada. So So anyway, before we go into the discussion, what did you think? First initial thoughts on Saint Seiya?
Pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys, pretty boys. Actually, there was maybe one or two characters that actually had me at this point. But I don't know. I can definitely see the more Bishonen kind of look to the manga. Yeah, I feel first impressions in general, just the art style it's this interesting mix, or maybe mix isn't the word, but it feels very reminiscent of Kinnikuman and Ashita no Joe, where it kind of has more of maybe Kinnikuman isn't exactly a good comparison, or I don't know.
No, it definitely, like, once you mentioned Ashina Joe and I thought about it, it's like, oh, no, you're right. It does kind of have, like, it feels more like it came out in, like, the 60s or 70s than it did the 80s almost, right?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like the art style is deliberately, like, calling attention to an older time period, I suppose, which is interesting to think about because for us, it's in itself, it is an old manga, but it just happens to be, like, drawing on things that were older in a time, because when it was coming out, like Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star, I would say, are really distinct from, like, that more Ashina Joe Tezuka kind of ish art style that we're used to for older manga, right? And once you pointed that out, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
But yeah, like, so the character designs might be a little more, you know, kind of old school in that regard, but, like, the fucking, like, 2-page spreads and just all of the little, like, it's a good looking manga. I really like the art style.
Well, I mean, yeah, but unfortunately, like, we read the first few volumes on a website that had them translated, like a fan translated version of them, because the official release is a Viz release, an early 2000s Viz release. Which means it has, you know, some name changes, like Saori has become Sienna, I think, for some reason.
And they're not saints, they're knights.
Right, like, which I assume is because of the English dub that would have, Knights of the Zodiac, which I vaguely remember seeing some of, I think, as a kid. But, like, not more than a couple episodes. So I imagine that's why the name changes happened. Other than that, it seems like a pretty decent translation, except for the sound effects, which it's got the Yu Yu Hakusho thing going on, where it's like, let's just cover up half the art. Because even in the original Japanese, the sound effects are really big and do cover up the art. But, you know, they have to cover up the entire thing with an English sound effect. And so it just, like, there was one page I showed you where Seiya is getting hit by, like, a spiral attack. And in the English one, you can't even recognize the shape of the attack, and that is a spiral because the entire bottom half is covered.
Yeah.
Where in the original Japanese, even though the sound effects are still really big, you can at least tell that it's a fucking spiral tornado thing that he's getting hit by. So, you know, unfortunate. But there's nothing much else we could do because, like, once those fans, the nice looking ones, ended, it got to really shitty looking ones, and I was like, you know, I'd rather have the sound effects covering half the art than have it look like this. So I immediately switched to the official.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's still not, I think, like, I haven't heard of any, like, major translation issues yet compared to, like, Yu Yu Hakusho, so, you know, at least as far as, like, early Viz stuff, I feel like maybe this is still decent, all things considered, but, like, relatively speaking, but, and another thing, since you mentioned Pretty Boys, yeah, Saint Seiya was a big deal when it came to shoujo manga, funnily enough, because, you know, it attracted a lot of female readers because of those pretty boys, including Clamp, who would eventually, you know, they got their start doing Saint Seiya fan manga, and eventually would go on to start their own doujin circle that eventually became officially published manga. So yeah, Cardcaptor Sakura would not exist without Saint Seiya.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Right. So just another example of, like, why this manga is important. And it's like, yeah. So just, you know, more trivia about, like, Saint Seiya being
I feel
a big
like
deal.
at the very least, like, with that sort of reputation in mind, it's like, I can't hate Saint Seiya.
Right. Like, even if, like, right, if it's just all fighting and it's just maybe a little, but it's like at least it's not like, you know, like what was your problem with Kinnikuman again, Mathwiz? Maybe the dirty humor or the fact that it's like anti-aesthetic, right? Like, we're saying like is at least closer to your aesthetic, so you're gonna have that going for it, right? So yeah. So yeah, I guess for me is like I wasn't super into it. I didn't dislike it, you know, but I was just kind of like, yep, this is sure is a thing I'm reading. And yeah, I'll talk about some more specifics later. But I don't know. I hope that I come to enjoy it later. And I'm also curious about Lost Canvas, which we will be reading, which I've heard some say is actually better than the original Saint Seiya, even though Kuramada didn't do it, or at least not the art. So that's I don't know. We'll see when we get there, of course. But anyway, on to the reading. Immediately the first thing that caught my eye is like from a week ago, like looking at Saint Seiya as an outsider, I just assumed that it was like just a fantasy manga that took place like I don't know in fantasy magic Greece land or something. But no, it's Seiya's just Japanese, and he is literally from Japan. And there's the sanctuary, which is like a magical thing where the gods are, I guess, or the knights at least, or the saints. But I just like, wait a minute. Oh no, it takes place in contemporary times. Okay, okay, sure. It's just something that I assumed was otherwise from the outside for no reason in particular. But
I do think it is interesting that even though like the characters are from Japan, like there are there's a lot of different like influences kind of being pulled in, like with the characters all kind of being sent off to different countries to like do their training and stuff, and as well just like the Greek mythology being kind of tied into things. Mm-hmm. I just think it's like an interesting sort of because like I've read Percy Jackson, I've seen like Greek mythology works before, but seeing it from more like a more Japanese kind of perspective, mm-hmm. I think it's interesting to see how that all kind of ties together, because like thinking of like other shonen manga, like that's different, right? That's not something I'm super used to seeing tied in.
The only other manga I can think of off the top of my head that deals with these kind of like old Western gods is Records of Ragnarok, which sort of has like mixes a bunch of pantheons basically. So you have like Greek gods and Norse gods and Egyptian mm-hmm. gods and all that, but like that, and that's also a modern manga. So I can't think of a lot of times that it comes up in comparison to Western media, even just the fact that fantasy is kind of like heavily derived from Norse mythology, because Tolkien was a nerd, mm-hmm. and so he took a lot of like his, and then that he kind of became important for fantasy. So it's just and I'm now that mentioned, I'm kind of curious as to going forward and seeing when we actually get to Sanctuary and maybe see more of it than just the aesthetic almost, I guess, like, and Athena being like a thing, because I do know some of the gods become more of a thing later, as in that like some of the future arcs are named for them, but so anyway, Seiya ends up in Greece because he's being trained by Marin, and we kind of get established like what's the deal with the saints. They fight for Athena, and like they have to Seiya has his first fight against Cassius.
I think like going from Dragon Ball to this to Saint Seiya is also kind of interesting in terms of like fight choreography, because like Toriyama with his paneling and whatnot like is really good at like laying out sort of like the mechanics of a fight and kind of I don't know. Whereas I feel like with Saint Seiya, it's a little less like that. A lot of the time, it's that just like stands out to me is just kind of like character throws a punch or some sort of attack, and they take up like the bottom corner of the frame, and then like in the top left corner, you see the person just like flying away, and then like in the next thing, they're like landing face down on the ground, and it's like that's the fight choreography. I'm oversimplifying it, but
I can kind of understand where you're coming from, because like it is very abstract a lot of the times, where it's like, is the attack even? Like I've seen some pages, like 2-page spreads from later in the manga, where like they'll do an attack and the imagery is just like a bunch of weird space shit, and it somehow does damage, and like it's so abstract that like what. And I was just thinking about it, like, because I've also been reading a couple shoujo manga, like I've been reading Monogatari, and just the way things are presented are just more like stylized mm-hmm. in some ways. Like it's a bit less literal than I'm used to with shonen manga. And I was also thinking about Kimetsu no Yaiba, which outright like they don't even have like there a lot of like if like when Tanjiro attacks, there's like water drawn to represent like the flow of his attacks, but he's not actually like summoning water, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wonder if there's, because like I'm just it's like here's Saint Seiya and Kimetsu, these manga that use more abstract art in their fights rather than like literal representations of what happening, compared to like Dragon Ball, mm-hmm. and then I don't know, it's just a little bit more like shoujo manga. I'm coming to maybe that's I don't know, it's something I just association I noticed, so I was just like thinking about that, just because I was wondering how you were going to feel about that, because I remember 3 years ago Mathwiz was mentioning so I think it was Naruto, but was something about how like Orochimaru like his pain in his arms, like, you know, it does, you don't feel that in the same way that you like in watching the Saiyans fight and seeing how just they get brutalized or stuff like that. So I was wondering how you were going to feel about the like I said, the abstractness of it. Like one character like does like a water spout attack and there's a whale suddenly, and
well, okay. I mean, like the you know, as I said, like the art for it though is interesting. Like whenever the characters do the attack, like obviously like with the meteor fist, you know, you have all the little like the little punches, like they're just the little beams of light like spraying out from the center with like the starry sky in the background, and that's cool. You know, when the ice guy comes in and he does his diamond dust and it's like just a bunch of little like snowflakes, and it gets like really crazy when some of these attacks are like blending together, and so you get like the mix of like was it like ice and chains or something, or like when the characters are doing their standoffs and it's like you get like the dragon and like the Pegasus or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's just like the detail on like the just all the lines I'm seeing on like, especially when the dragon is there, it's just like holy shit, god damn.
No, yeah, the art's definitely cool,
and the phoenix, oh my goodness.
And I will also say that because the chapters are, it's like the chapters are as long as monthly chapters, like there's only 3 or 4 per volume.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the release, like for the manga, and I like just judging by like from now when it started versus when it ended, it seems like it was bi-week or, you know, every 2 weeks. Though I don't know if that's like 100% the case, just because it's like yeah,
because I was confused
like
by that too, because I was like, how can this possibly be weekly? One, with like the length of the chapters, but also you know, like the fact that like if this was weekly, there would be like hundreds of chapters or whatever. But it did say, you know, published in Weekly Shonen Jump, so I'm just like, this seems interesting.
Right, so I was told that it ran weekly, but I like, again, going by the publishing date, I'm just not sure which one to believe, even though the source for that is, you know, trustworthy. But I don't know. And well, the other thing about the art is also like Kuramada talks a lot, like in the volume openings. I think I've seen some of the later ones where he just talks about his health and stuff. And apparently, from an interview he made when the Next Dimension was publishing, so he's still drawing Saint Seiya. It's just not this one. And like apparently, in his finger, like there's between his bones, the cartilage is just gone from work. And he could get a surgery to fix it, but he feels like he doesn't want to because he might like lose his penmanship, basically. So he's literally suffering to keep making Saint Seiya for people, and I'm just like, so it's and just like imagining just the not I don't want to think about it. It's this guy. So yeah, I don't just manga workplace hell. So I appreciate the art even more because he fucking is literally suffering for it. I don't know what point I'm trying to make there, but also, yeah, there's a lot of fucking characters, like I'm just remembering, because it's like, how am I supposed to remember all their fucking names? Oh yeah, so I forgot about this, yeah, because early on there's like, after Seiya beats Cassius, he fights Sheena, who is was his mentor, and like there's a whole thing where like he can't fight her because she's a woman. Okay. They fight again later, but I forget if that came up. Because that seems like an arc thing that might happen, but I don't know.
Yeah, I seem to remember like when their fight happened later, it wasn't much of a fight because it got interrupted. Or wait, I guess there was also they had like another encounter or two.
Yeah, well then they also seem to have kind of like a romance thing, because they talked about how like, well, the female knights or saints use masks to hide their femininity because something about, you know, women on the battlefield, I don't know. But then Seiya saw under the mask, and that's like there's a thing there, I guess. And I'm like, okay, this is, you know, happening. So, you know, it's just like unresolved as far as we've read. So I don't know, just like remembering these things as I'm going through it again. So anyway, we then get some exposition dump about how like the world sees the cloths and their history changing power, and they go, okay, so we sent out some guys, and we got 10 of these cloths. We're gonna have a fucking tournament, boys. Like, they now have 10 history-changing weapons, and their first thought is a tournament arc. And I love it. It's just the absurdity of it is just like, I don't know, it's a little funny to me. And we also get introduced to Saori, who, like, even from the beginning, I was like, is she associated with Athena in any way? And then, like, by the end of the reading, it's like, oh, yeah, she's literally a reincarnation of Athena. Okay. And you compared her to Yoko from Ashino Joe, and once you mentioned that, I was like, oh.
Well, yeah, definitely, like, you know,
that.
her being in the position of, like, I guess technically it was like she's doing it on behalf of her grandfather, I think it was. But still, you know, like, kind of being in that sort of, like, position of authority. And kind of,
which
like,
is also the case with Yoko, because she had, or was it her father? But
yeah, like Yoko definitely
right, so.
also had that kind of, like, influence. So, like, I'm curious. Like, basically, when I saw this character, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be kind of like the non-combatant female character to watch out for.
No, yeah.
Although maybe she will be a combatant at some point. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. See, I feel like I've heard her compared to Orihime from Bleach, but, we'll see. But, like, especially because, like, I think, well, because Kubo has apparently, like, his biggest influences he's mentioned that are Saint Seiya and also Gegege no Kitaro, the yokai manga. Which has gotten like fucking 50 anime adaptations. I think I checked and it gets like one every decade. But you know, and that kind of makes sense. Like you have Saint Seiya when it comes to like the battle aspect and the structural aspect, and then you have Gegege no Kitaro for like the supernatural aspect. So yeah, the fact, but you know, but then since you mentioned that maybe, you know, people are like looking for these associations, so well, you know, I'll see how I feel. Like I can definitely see some similarities to, like, because I've heard Sanctuary compared to Soul Society, and seeing how, I don't know, like they seem to have their rules that you know, have them conflicting with the main characters who are maybe like challenging those rules, and that's very Soul Society. So I can kind of see it so far, but that's like really the next reading that we really get into that arc. And also, I guess, to go back to Yoko a bit, because, like, we get the whole flashback where Saori is, like, asking or demanding that the orphans be used as, like, a mount, and you have the unicorn one who's, like, a simp who is totally down for it, and where Seiya is resistant. It just reminded me of her having, like, a harsh personality. Like, Yoko was never quite like that, but she was definitely very, like...
what's the word? I almost want to say, like, privileged, but that sounds weird. Just, like, being kind of, like, above people and not really having that sort of reality check or whatever to, like, I don't know. So I think that in particular as well was something that I saw, and I was like, oh, this is a character arc, isn't it?
Yeah, and because that's definitely more like Yoko than it is Orihime, at least, you know, just judging by, like, how they are at the start of the story, right?
So, like, this was definitely a part of the story where I was
intrigued.
Although, actually, I don't even remember what happened to the unicorn guy.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be important. He was introduced like a rival figure almost. I was like, okay, yeah, Pegasus and the unicorn, right? They're both horse-based mythological.
Because I remember,
creatures,
like, he
right?
was there with the chain boy when Iki showed up, and then he got beat and I just disappeared. I forgot about him, honestly.
I kind of did too.
Because, like, he was a character that, like, early on I was kind of interested in that whole thing of, like, him sort of, like, sacrificing himself for, like, Saori's sake, and what that could sort of mean for, like, a dynamic between the three of them and what the story would do with that. But he's just gone. Does he come back?
And yeah, I'm looking at, like, the lineup for the tournament again, and there's the 8 starting ones, and, like, 3 of them actually end up being, like, important to the rest of the reading. You have Shiryu, you have Shun, and you have Seiya. And yeah, the unicorn guy just kind of stops being a thing. And obviously there's the 2 missing ones, Hyoga and Iki, who become important later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, most of these guys don't matter, unfortunate.
I did find it kind of funny that, I think some of these characters almost have like jobber designs. Like you can kind of tell the difference between
100%
who have like the thinner, more like kind of like narrow-eyed sort of like designs, and then there's like the pretty boys.
Right. I wonder which of these, and that's I guess what's surprising about the unicorn guy is that he has a design that says I'm going to be important, but then he isn't, and it's like weird, right? So just that little dissonance, I guess.
But I don't remember like he was dead or anything, so like I would maybe he'll come back. I hope.
Right, he totally could. I just have no idea if he will.
I think that was also part of it too, because like the other characters from this tournament, like they pretty much all died if they weren't gonna be relevant. And then there was him, where like I don't remember them saying that he was like. Maybe I'm
dead.
Dwelling on this too much. It's just odd.
No, yeah, it definitely threw me a little bit. It's just like you said, it's just, yeah. But anyway,
God, and just like all the shots of the Coliseum, it's good art.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. I don't remember having anything to say about like the first fight between Seiya and the big guy. Like I guess it establishes that strength is in everything. Sure. Oh yeah, then we get introduced to Hyuga, the ice guy, and he's got a whole thing with like his mother, and he's also the one sent by Sanctuary to deal, because like the whole thing with the tournament is that there's, you know, under Sanctuary rules they're using their cloths for selfish purposes, which is already being questioned. Like I think one character mentions like, you know, would they be fighting so hard if it was for selfish purposes? Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, here's Hyuga fighting for his mom. Seiya wants to find his sister, right? So just a lot of you know, like reasons to challenge Sanctuary later, I suppose.
I'm curious now, thinking more back to like Bleach influences. If I remember correctly, well, the name of Hyuga's attack is Diamond Dust, and I believe it's the second movie with Hitsugaya is called Diamond Dust Rebellion. So
okay.
I wonder, like, was that a direct influence there?
Or yeah, a reference maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know Hitsugaya is the ice one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, the next fight is probably one of the ones I found more interesting in the reading. Shiryu versus Seiya.
Yeah, Shiryu's cool. I like him so far.
Yeah, cause like with his like you said, his dragon punches look really cool, and I guess also like what I liked about the fight itself was just how Shiryu is kind of like he really respects his master to the point that he's like, you know, completely beholden to him almost. But even then, like, because his master warned like, hey, your dragon punch has a weakness and someone will eventually find it, and he's like, no, but my master's so great, he's the only one who could possibly find my weakness.
Yeah.
And where Seiya, you know, he's more able to like grow and improve, so he's able to surpass Shiryu, who's being like who seems to think he's perfect, right? And it, like to the point like they do the immovable or the unstoppable spear and the immovable shield kind of thing, and he just like Seiya gets him to break it. Like, nice going, Shiryu, dumbass. But no, it was kind of cool. I liked it.
Yeah, it was a fight that I could follow, and it had like a nice little payoff there. And of course, they did the thing where it's like, we're gonna shed our armor and we're just gonna fisticuffs, and it's like, let's go.
And I also, like, I gotta admit, I found it a little bit funny at the end when Shiryu is fucking dead.
Yeah.
And they go, okay, well, since he was punched in the front, we have to make him come back to life by punching him in the back. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it works. And it's just like, it's just so silly. I don't know, something about it's just funny to me.
I mean, Shiryu has already died like 3 or 4 times. I love this man.
At least with Iki, it's like, okay, he's a phoenix, right? Like, it just makes sense when he comes back. Like, that's just fitting. But Shiryu is just like, yeah, sure. But yeah, it's good. Anyway, then we get the Mathwiz aesthetic character for the manga, throwing the bet in now, honestly. Shun, who is, well, I didn't even think about it until you tweeted about it, but it's like, oh, like, Pretty Boy is like, yeah, okay. Chains, it's like, oh, of course. Kurapika? Who's that? Mathwiz is no longer friends with Kurapika, Shin's new best friend.
I can't. I would never do that to Hunter characters. But yeah, yes. he's the aesthetic character so far. He definitely is a pretty boy. I won't say more than that.
And yeah, he completely destroys the unicorn guy, and I don't think we see from him ever again. So yeah, and anyway, then we get holy shit, this is fast. I'm already in volume 3. Well, I guess we feel like we've been talking a while at the same time, but it's like it's still a really quick reading. So yeah, Phoenix Iki shows up, and so this is what I thought was interesting, because I've been thinking about for a while how I felt like, oh, I think the Chunin exams in Naruto is the first time where we have like the structured conflict that gets completely interrupted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, because I was thinking like when I thought about older examples like Dragon Ball or Kinnikuman, like I made a point to mention how like, oh, it's kind of interesting that even though they have these tournaments that are and have high stakes or even interruptions, like they still follow through on the tournament, right? No, that doesn't happen here at all. And whenever this is, I guess now this is the earliest example I know of it, where here's this tournament, and Phoenix Iki comes in with the Dark Saints, and yeah, there is no tournament anymore. God, the Phoenix art is so good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then you get the he fights the one guy, and he sort of like shows off his power where he makes people see visions of death, and you get what is probably the single goriest image I have seen in a shonen manga that I can remember, with the dude getting like the jobber dude, he gets like blown apart, and you see his skeleton, and there's organs everywhere, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But anyway, Iki steals, and his Dark Saints steal the gold cloth. And they definitely like to pull the that guy wasn't that strong, or like, because they beat the fake Ikis, but they're just shadows, they don't matter. And then like more Black Saints come in with the who have the kind of mimicry powers of the main 4 characters.
This reading was interesting as far as like, sort of the establishing section of the story, because it just keeps going. Like there's never any like time, there's not much time in between to like breathe and like set up the next thing. It's just like tournament, okay, the Black Saints, okay, Iki, okay, also Silver Knights and Sanctuary, and
No, yeah, like we've talked about before, how a lot of Jump stories seem to start with these very like episodic things where they dwell like one chapter on something or just a few chapters, and in general like the arcs are just shorter compared to later on in the series. But here it's like, no, you just kind of get thrown right into things, and like immediately, like, because like if you were to separate like the Galaxian tournament with the Sanctuary arc, where's the divide? It kind of just like, because
especially because when they're done fighting Iki, they go back to the Coliseum and sort of wrap that up.
Right, and it's just kind of like, it keeps going, and then the Silver Saints start coming in, so it's like, it's definitely not episodic in the same way, even if like the because the fights still like work together in like the same tournament and stuff, or after the fact. So yeah. So anyway, Shun gets attacked by the Black Saint for the Swan, and Hyuga comes in to fight his dark copy. But that gets interrupted because, of course, we also get a bit of like a recovery stuff where Shiryu goes to Mew to fix their broken cloths, and him being a self-sacrifice boy, he has to like sacrifice a lot of his blood to fix the cloths, so that becomes a whole thing. I'm already done with volume 3. What the fuck? Jeez. It's just such a quick, like, I almost feel like in one chapter, even though it's 40 pages, it still feels like, about as much as happens in a 20-page modern chapter. Like, I don't know. It's weird. But with more art, so it's like, yeah. So yeah, I guess the fights get started. I don't really have much to say about Hyuga versus, or I don't know, I'm skipping ahead, because Shiryu delivered the Pegasus cloth.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that I kind of started to get with this reading, like, the further I got into it, is that, like, there's a lot happening, but I don't feel like there's a lot to say about what's happening.
Not majorly. No, like I'm a bit worried for like, is the next episode gonna be like 30 minutes long? Cause I don't know. A lot of things I have to say are more general, I think, and we've said a lot of those already. So, but yeah, Seiya gets his ass beat, and then Hyoga fights his dark copy and beats his ass. Cause there's stuff I like that happens later. It's just like until then, it's just like a feel like, yep, that was a fight. The dark saint sort of helps Iki by helping it. Like, there's a thing about like how if your last attack was burned into his retina, so he ripped out his eye and sent it to Iki, so Iki could memorize that's a Kinnikuman thing, which is like the absurdity of like, yeah, this is the thing that's happening now, or that like that's just the tone.
Yeah,
I mean, not really the tone, but just like it's just like, okay, you just kind of have to roll with the mechanics that they're introducing and just like accept it, because otherwise you're not gonna stop. Because Hyoga fights Iki, but his attack is memorized. And he gets defeated.
I like how pretty much every character in this arc like has a moment where they're like dead and then they come back from the dead. Because like I think with I forget if it was with Dragon or Seiya that like it was sort of established. No, I think it was with Dragon in his fight, because he's like I don't know, because I could see it being like a nitpick that like but what about the page where Hyoga got stabbed in the heart and it's like he's already dead? And it's like, what? But then he just comes back and it's like, what? I mean, they do also have like a thing with him that there was like some, I forget what it was that like protected his heart, I guess.
Yes, and then later there was also like he lost so much, or Shiryu lost so much blood that like if he takes one more hit, he's dead. But he even made the sacrifice in the first place because my life already belongs to Seiya because he saved me.
Yeah.
I wonder why people ship these characters. No, yeah, I can't think of a series that we've read so far that does more with like the death fake outs in this, or just like outright saying characters are dead and then just like, yeah, no, he's fine actually, or at least not in such quick succession. But anyway, Shun tries to save Seiya, and he gets attacked by two of the Black Saints at once, and yeah, he defeats the Dark Andromeda, and then Shiryu comes in to fight the Dark Dragon. And God, I'm looking at the art again, and it's just like, yeah, that's good. And yeah, there's a friendship thing, and it's cool.
Yeah, no, the power of friendship moment is it's what it be. It's good shit.
Yeah, like I think it was Shiryu who had the line about how like as orphans, like friendship is all they have, so of course they're willing to fight for it, and the Dark Saint Dragon even helps Shiryu for maybe I'll I've seen something that's worth believing in, the friendship that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, friendship's cool. Oh yeah, and that's right, they saved Seiya's life by like puncturing the points relevant to his the Pegasus constellation. And it just made me think about how he's not even the only shonen protagonist at the time with a constellation shaped like Scar.
Yeah.
Because Fist of the North Star would have been running at the same time. So this just came to mind.
Yeah, I haven't even seen Fist of the North Star, and I was like, yep, that's this.
So yeah, I guess like that's just like, and maybe it just happened. See, I feel like the editor would have said something. So, but if he just did it accident, without having known about Fist of the North Star, which is weird to think about if he did. But I mean, like I was saying, with Yuta Tamago and Toriyama, just being inspired by Ring Nikakura, like this kind of thing is just kind of that's a series that it was coming out at the same time with, and Fist of the North Star was a big fucking deal. So yeah, it's fine. Did they explain why Hyoga didn't die?
Yeah, it comes up at some point.
Okay, because I'm reading it again, and like I guess they get to his backstory first, because I just thought it's funny, because it's like, impossible, your heart was impaled, and then like they just kind of keep going and don't address it. So I feel like I remember it coming up, but oh no, wait, he did mention it. Okay, or I think Anyway, yeah, we get Iki's backstory where because he took the he said I'm going to go to this island because he was trying to protect his brother Shun, and he suffered a lot there. He lost Esmeralda, who he cared about. And,
I liked the page where she like he's like unconscious and she like wakes him up and he's like Shun, and it's like, oh no, you just have the same hair color, and it's like gender.
Right, like, because Shun is commented on being a boy so pretty, he could be mistaken for a girl, and here's a girl that he mistook for his brother. So yeah, but yeah, then we find out that actually, you know, like Iki got his power through hatred, but then Shun was sent to an even like he tried to protect his brother, but Shun was still sent to an even worse place. Right, so, you know, Iki had given into his hatred and was sort of like defining himself by his suffering and his, you know, the bad things that happened where, like, you know, everyone else suffered too. Like, the whole thing is just shitty. Which is ultimately, you know, he's defeated, so. Oh yeah, we also get introduced, or briefly see Shaka, who is a gold cloth, who we also see at the end of the reading. Alright then, the gold cloth, Seiya gets some of the pieces and he's able to defeat Iki with the power of friendship. Let's go! Or brotherly love, as it turns out, that all the 100 orphans are actually related because they actually do have the same father. And it's like, what wow, okay. Dude got around. But yeah, they beat Iki. That gets resolved. So, then it sort of cuts away and we see Misty, the Silver Knight, attacking Mew.
Yeah, this is the part where, like, I kind of got a little, this is where I was maybe kind of, like, starting to fall off the reading, because it's just, like, it just kept going. There wasn't any, like, any pause in between. It's like, oh, we beat Iki, and, you know, we get teleported from this mountain, and, oh, now there's new enemies, and, they even did the thing where it's like they tried to save the characters to avoid fighting the Silver Knights. But then they just fight the Silver Knights anyway. It's like, okay.
Right, like there's the whole, oh no, everyone's dead. But it's like, no, literally nobody is dead.
I mean, like when they also brought the Black Saints, I was like, I see what they're doing here. It's like, you know, using them as sort of like body doubles, that it's like, they die, but not the main characters.
But yeah, then we get Seiya versus Misty.
It was a fight.
Yep, and there's, I guess, kind of a perfection thing, because, you know, Seiya was willing to die, and Misty didn't want to lose a drop of blood, so that happened. At least Misty was very pretty. I mean, I didn't totally think Misty might have been a girl at one point, even forgetting that, like, there's the whole thing with, like, the girl saints have to wear masks or something.
Well, I thought that there was even a part where, like, in the Viz translation, it said she.
Oh, really? Okay.
I maybe I misread that, because I looked it over several times. I was like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. So I was like, is there something I'm not getting here? It might have just been...
But it's like, yeah.
The typo. I think that's also the sort of thing that, like, everything just happens so fast with this manga that it's like...
it does.
Stopping to process things for a second. It's like, what is going on?
But anyway, Marin comes in, she gets beat, and sort of there's a hostage situation where she might drown, so Seiya has to, save her, and there's Marin might be the sister he's looking for, which I mean I think is just a foregone conclusion to this point, but it hasn't been fully addressed, I guess, by because it just keeps going.
Yeah.
But yeah, Seiya fights the Silver Knight for a bit, and then Marin eventually escapes and defeats him. So it's like, yep, that happened. They also talk about how much they hate their dad. But then it turns out later on, we find out more about the Athena situation, and maybe he wasn't the worst guy.
I don't know how I felt about that twist, because it's like,
weird.
He wasn't shown to be a very good person, so for it to just be like, oh, he was just playing his role he wasn't so bad after all. It's like,
yeah, I mean, he did still, sire literally over 100 children and make a lot of them become warriors. So, and many of them died. Okay. Yeah, a little weird. But yeah, then we get the reveal that Saori is in fact Athena, or reborn. She immediately gets kidnapped. Seiya does try to save her, but ultimately fails. And I guess one thing that might tie to her arc is how she has way more Cosmo power than even the Gold Saints, but ultimately she still has to be protected. So I don't know. I just that just came to mind as something that might get touched on later. But yeah, Iki comes to save her, which is cool. He's doing the shonen thing. The former antagonist has become an ally, and he just oh, we're 3 silvers. What can 1 bronze do against 3 silvers? And he's like, this, and he just fucking beats their asses. Well, no, he does get help, but it's just... All right, there's the whole thing with the guy with the Medusa shield. But yeah, at this point, it's I don't have much to say about the fights themselves. The art's still good.
I mean, it's another dragon fight, so of course he does something just
insane.
Yeah, just galaxy brain, just... Okay,
eyes.
He tried to do the shield
those?
thing, and that didn't work, so he's
Right.
like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna tear out my eyes. And it's like, damn, dude. He's just so respect I don't know, but I
yeah,
I respect it.
No restraint. Yeah,
he's a good boy. I think of the characters so far, Dragon might be my favorite to this point.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'd probably agree. I do Iki is fine. But mostly there's just it's I'm enjoying it. Nothing major has stood out to me personally, but
I think it's just the fact that Dragon has had multiple fights, and I
True.
distinctly remember stuff going on in them, and it's yeah, okay, that's cool.
How can you not recognize remember his tendency to self-sacrifice himself and so yeah. But anyway, we get a bit of backstory for how the Sagittarius cloth ended up in possession of Saori, where there's the 2 gold cloth knights, and the one of them who the former Sagittarius knight who sacrificed, or he left the sanctuary, and his brother goes to the master, I guess, who's sort of pretending to be Athena's voice, but Athena's gone. So there's some fuckery going on at sanctuary, and Seiya is able to sort of convince the Leo Knight by because he sort of is able to carry on the dead brother's will by putting on the Sagittarius cloth temporarily. But yeah, I guess that's about where the reading ends, huh? Well, I guess the Leo Knight does go back to Sanctuary to question the master, and Shaka suddenly appears, and that's where the reading ends. So there was definitely other stuff, but I feel like we commented on most of it, at least a bit. We did get a glimpse at Sanctuary, where it's not paradise, but yeah, that's about it for the reading.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this reading a decent amount. It was kind of by the end I was sort of losing steam with it, but for I don't know, it's just the kind of series where it's I don't know, not really sure what to say at this point beyond the art is good. It's hard to put into words what I like about it, I guess. Definitely aesthetically, I think it has a lot that keeps me interested. I mean, I'm curious to read more.
Yeah,
I was excited to finally give this series a shot because it's one of the influential more 80s shonen manga. I'm also just talking to make sure that this episode isn't shorter than the shortest Gintama episode, because nothing deserves Saint Seiya doesn't deserve the shame of having a shorter Nen Show discussion than Gintama.
Well, next time we're only reading 6 volumes, so it's an even shorter reading.
I'll just start talking about random shit if I have to.
I don't think that's possible, but you do you. I'll respect it. So yeah, next time we are reading volumes 8 to 13, which, I mean, the chapters aren't numbered in the Viz release, but it is chapter 28 to 45. So I'm using Wikipedia for the chapter numberings. But
yeah, it's an interesting manga.
Yeah, so we will thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.